Hello, and welcome to the course of U.S. history. I am your host, Mr. Samuelson. Last time was the Declaration of Independence, those representatives at the Second Continental Congress that declared independence from Great Britain and created the United States of America. Way to go, guys. Now they got to deal with the fallout of that. The colonies are at war. We've got a full-on American Revolution. Let's see how it goes. After taking Boston back from the British, the American colonies wanted to strike next at Canada. They used basically the same strategy that the British had used in the French and Indian War, the idea that if you take Quebec, you can take Canada. It's right there on the St. Lawrence River. It controls all of the access to the Great Lakes and is very important for the defense and supply of Canada. So this becomes the plan for the Continental Army to seize Canada from Great Britain. Go on the offensive right away. Go up there and, get those pine trees and maple syrup. Let's go get it. Now, the men put in charge for this are Generals Montgomery, who goes up first and captures Montreal, and then he is joined shortly after by Benedict Arnold himself. Yeah, Benedict Arnold. The same guy who helped out at Fort Ticonderoga is going to go after Canada. Now, together, they fail. Yeah, they can't take Quebec. Quebec is a very defensible city. It's elevated. It has a good view of everything else that approaches it. It's got the waterways right there, so the British boats are able to support the city. They can't take Quebec. And without holding Quebec, you can't hold Canada, so they abandon Montreal, and they leave Canada behind. So, sorry, Canada, you don't get to be a part of the United States. You've got to be your own little country up there. I know that's sad for you. Well, couldn't take Canada. Let's see how else things are going. Well, remember that deal that George Washington had made with the British? General Howe is able to take that army that had left Boston, gathers that up together, and now he decides to attack New York City. So the colonists are able to get Boston back, and they're going to lose New York City in the balance because not only will Gage's men from Boston be able to join General Howe, but General Howe is bringing a massive army from Great Britain. They go and they attack New York City. Now, Washington's soldiers are no real army. These are farmers that bring their own rifles out and join up with the Continental cause. And they are fighting British regular soldiers. And those regulars just destroy Washington and the Continental Army at the Battle of Long Island. The most miraculous and best news for Washington and the Continental Army to come out of this battle is that they managed to escape Long Island and they managed to save their own lives. Washington ends this battle and still has an army. It very nearly wasn't that way, and if there was no Continental Army after the Battle of Long Island, then this war was done. But he escapes. General Howe is now in a position, if you look at this map, he's going to control New York City, which sits right here. From New York City, he's going to be able to have a couple of options. He can strike south and go after Philadelphia, the capital of the United States at the time was Philadelphia, or can strike back north. And Washington and his Continental Army are not going to be able to defend both of them. They simply can't. They have one army and it is land-based. Great Britain has a larger army and it can move by sea. So it can move more quickly and undetected by sailing away from shore. And the Americans simply have no idea where they're going to show up. So Howe has this option. He can go in either direction. And the Americans are somewhat blind to it. Well, this is a bad time for the American army. They're not feeling very good about what's been happening. They lost the city of New York, their largest and wealthiest city. What are they going to do? Well, they need to start winning. Morale is very low. That was a big blow against the Americans. So, On Christmas Day, 1777, at a time when armies usually did not fight battles, there were very few winter battles during these times, Washington decides he needs to boost morale, especially since a lot of his men are about to be going home because their enlistments are up. So he attacks while he still has an army. And he attacks first the city of Trenton in New Jersey, and he does his famous crossing of the Delaware. The Delaware River is partially frozen, sneaks his men across, and attacks the city of Trenton, where a group of Hessian mercenaries, these are German mercenaries, hired by the British, are camped out. They are in a partying sort of mood, not at all prepared for an attack. A man by the name of Alexander Hamilton leads the artillery strike on the city, captures the Hessians completely off guard, and Washington has a win. Now, the nearby city of Princeton is home to a British garrison. And they're like, what? Trenton's been attacked? Well, we need to make sure that we strike out at this Continental Army. And they do, but Washington defeats them as well. And 9 days later, Washington wins the Battle of Princeton, this time against a British army that knows he's in the area and knows that he's fighting, and yet Washington wins this important battle. So in the winter of 1777, 1778, the Continental Army has a couple of important victories, important for morale. These were not huge strategic wins, but they do keep that army alive together and now with something to look back on and be proud of. Washington is quite happy. Now, the biggest victory, probably all told the second most important, and maybe the most important victory for the Continentals during the American Revolution, is the Battle of Saratoga. The British, remember, they're in New York City. They can strike north, they can strike south. They decide on a tactic of striking north. They're going to capture all of New York. They're going to sail up the Hudson River or march up the Hudson River. They're going to capture all the forts along the way, and they're going to completely sever New England from the rest of the colonies. This is the plan. And they send 3 armies up north to do this. The problem is 2 of them aren't going to arrive. Yeah, General Burgoyne is not going to be too happy about that. This is this man. He's going to march south from Montreal. We've got St. Leger coming over here. A 3rd army was supposed to come up from New York. We'll get to that in a second. Benedict Arnold, who is here at this battle, he was the kind of the second in command at this battle, is going to successfully help to outposition one of those armies. And they're not going to make it. So that 3 armies becomes 2. General Howe, who is down in New York, figures those 2 other armies are going to do just a fine job of capturing northern New York all by themselves. He sees an open and undefended Philadelphia and figures he can capture that city and destroy continental morale. So he decides to abandon the plan, sail south. He does capture Philadelphia. The Continental Congress has to flee. But Philadelphia is not a strategically important city. So they've captured Philadelphia, but now they've left General Burgoyne all by himself for the Battle of Saratoga. The Battle of Saratoga, General Horatio Gates is going to run right into General Burgoyne, and they are going to fight a pretty significant battle in upstate New York. Burgoyne, of course, is thinking that he's going to have reinforcements coming, but that is simply not the case. Once Burgoyne realizes the position he's in, he is outnumbered significantly. He's surrounded, and 6,000 British soldiers under his command are captured by the Continental Army. This is a huge victory for the Continental Army. And one of the greatest things it does for them is it helps the rest of the world realize that the Americans could possibly win this war. The British are going to take them very seriously after Saratoga, and they can expect a fight. But the British might lose. And France is really excited by this. France has lost all those wars against Great Britain. They've been looking for an opportunity to really stick it to the British, and they just might be able to do so in America. So the French are going to fight for freedom and democracy in America, keeping in mind that they are an absolute monarchy. Those American ideals will actually spread back to France, and that's not going to go very well for the French monarchy. They're all basically going to lose their heads. But French aid in the American Revolution is pretty helpful for the Americans. That's all for today. Next time, we're going to be looking at the American Revolutionary War after the French join, and kind of how Saratoga turned the tides in that war, and things start to go very well for the Patriot/American Army. Thank you for joining me today for the course of U.S. history, and farewell.